metal means to you?
It's a network of friends, basically. It's a group of people who all identify the same way and are into the same things. So you can be friends with somebody without even knowing them, just because you share the same kind of opinions, listen to the same sort of music. If you ever stood at the front of a Slayer concert, you know, you'll turn around and nod and smile at the person standing next to you without knowing them or hearing them, and you both think the same thing, and that's kind of what it is.
What was going on in your life at the moment when you first connected with metal?
It was weird for me because I suppose I grew up with it. I've got a brother who's 8 years older than me, so when I grew up in the 70s, I was a toddler listening to Sabbath and Zeppelin and all that kind of stuff as it came out. And I didn't realise at the time, to me that was kind of what music was. So those are the tunes that I would hum to myself as I grew up. And it was only kind of later on in my teens, because I discovered kind of punk and hardcore by myself, and then came back to metal afterwards. So for me it was like a musical journey, really. Like, started out with it and then realised what it all was. I was like, I remember that. I was like, you know, knee-high, but so it was very much a kind of coming back to it in my teens, really.
Was metal the vehicle you express yourself with?
People tend to overcomplicate. If you're a musician, metal's a really easy way to express yourself, because you don't have to be like a super talented musician. If you can pick a guitar up and play 3 notes, in the same way with punk as well, with metal, you can think of a riff, you can put it down, and it's so straightforward and it's so simple. And you can get really convoluted and really complicated, but its basic form, it's just riffs, and it's all about the riff. And that's what's
that first Black Sabbath album, the first riff on the first song of the first Black
3
Sabbath.
notes. What more do you need?
The definition of heavy metal. If you like, say 3 chords, boom, boom, boom.
Says it all.
Simple. It's evil. It's powerful. It's emotional.
The 3 notes. I mean, you hear so much about the technicality in metal.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be
like
Rush and be like, you know, absolute at the peak of your game in the musicianship. But that doesn't mean to say it's any more valid than like
AC/DC.
Yeah, AC/DC. You tell me that Phil Rudd isn't one of the best drummers out there. The guy's, you know, he's a metronome, and that's it.
Okay, so one person without whom you wouldn't be doing this.
My brother, because it was because of him that he exposed me to all this music at a really, really early age. And there was a time in my early teens where I looked at that Sabbath or whatever, you know, because that's what I grew up with. So to me, that was old hat when I was going through my you know, finding out my own musical taste. But without him,
rebellious teenage years.
yeah, you know. But if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have heard any of this stuff, you know. So it's his fault.
Metal's commonly perceived as aggressive. What do you say about that?
Yeah. Well, I'd say it's angry more than aggressive. There's a slight difference. Aggressive is like a violent thing. It's not violent, but it's kind of, it's the music of the pissed off, the people
Rebellious,
who've got something to say, who've got something to be miffed about, who don't like, you know, what you're being forced down your throats on TV or advertising, all this kind of stuff. It's people that want to stand out for themselves. It's not, aggressive is the wrong word. It's anti, I think, on the whole. I think that's a better way of putting it.
And does metal serve a broader purpose, the communal need?
It's an expression for the young disenfranchised, kind of thing, and the people who were young disenfranchised and are now old and disenfranchised. I just think it's a form of basically being pissed off, you know, and you can be, without having to go and fight wars or go down the pit or, you know, all the kind of stuff that people got forced into in years gone by. You know, you've got nowhere to express that emotion there, aside from music, really.
I don't think as aggressive as the music is in that respect. Like I said, it's not like a violent thing. You know, you look at sort of festivals across Europe or across the world.
It's pissed
you
off.
get more sort of stabbings and violent assaults and things like that at every other sort of music festival other than rock and metal. There's hardly any incidents of, you know, violence against other sort of metalers at festivals. You never hear of it. But you take somewhere like Wireless Festival and there's like multiple stabbings each year. And I think because of the preconception of heavy metal and rock music, if that was to occur at somewhere like Download, the establishment would try and shut it down
straight away.
But because it's like, you know, something that's a bit more mainstream and they can probably make tax money off it, it sort of gets swept under the carpet.
It's that way, you know, it's metal and punk and, you know, hard music. You get that, you express all that, you get that out of you, so you don't need to go and shanks.
So why the mosh pit is probably the best way of people releasing their anger, because it's a non-violent way of you can go to the gym and spend half hour belting a punch bag, and that's much more sort of productive than going out onto the streets and venting your aggression and pent-up anger on another human being. And metal gives you that opportunity to go to a concert, listen to the music that you can release to, and jump in a mosh pit and just have a little bit of friendly banter, and it's a mutual respect between everybody.
That's I think the mosh pit is actually quite a key thing, certainly what we're looking at in regards of, like you said about it's for the pissed off, it's for the disenfranchised, but everyone has a good time with it.
Yeah. And then some of the best gigs when you're growing up, you come out of that and you've got like a bit of bloody nose or sort of bruised face or cheek, you come out of there sweating and you're like, what an amazing night that was. And most people would look at you and think, are you mental?
In the punk and hardcore, sort of punk and hardcore scene, there was like almost a set of rules insofar as there were pit police. So there'd be a pit and there'd be a bunch of guys standing around making sure that when people went down they were picked up and that people didn't get hurt and that the little people got looked after and all this kind of stuff. And it was so it was a kind of everybody looked after each other, and that was great. And it's not like it's a bit too much kickboxing these days. People kind of got the wrong end of the stick. It's not about the fighting. You get a bit roughy tufty. You might get a bit of a bruise, but everybody has a good time. Everybody looked out for each other. That was the difference between then and now. I think is that now it just doesn't seem that people look out for each other.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I'll stay out of it. I don't know because it's basically become, as opposed to kind of expressing yourself and having a good time. It's people are kind of like they're doing it for them, and it's the peacocks. They're out there showing their tail feathers. Look at me. This is what I'm doing. That sort of thing. And it's about them kind of doing their thing as opposed to here's us doing our thing. It's about look at me, look at what I'm doing.
I guess if you take anything like that, people try and take it to extremes. They'll take something that's fun and then see if they can take it a step further. And it used to be if you go to an old marquee show with the stage divers, everybody would jumping in sort of head first, hands first. Then all of a sudden people started going in feet first, and it was getting. There's no need to do that because you're gonna
somersault.
Yeah, you're gonna hurt someone. You can have a good time, but keep it respectful. Yeah.
Just sticking with that a second. If you were going to talk about a time frame for when you noticed that kind of change starting, could you give me a rough
90s.
start? 90s.
Going into the 90s, like early 80s or late 80s, you had the whole the British hardcore punk movement came from like American punk. Really, a lot of influence came from there, mixed in with Discharge.
Yeah.
We made our own thing basically, and at that time, so the American bands had come. You'd have all the the 100 Club and the Marquee gigs and all the little punk gigs around London, Birmingham, and like the Hummingbird and the Mermaid and places like that. And it was like a gang of people who all into the same thing, looking out for each other. But when it got a little bit more mainstream, and people who hadn't made a concerted effort to find out about this music and find out about the lifestyle and send tapes to everybody they knew and write to people in America and Australia and Japan, all this kind of stuff. People just kind of came in because it looks,
It might have been something to do with the genre crossing as well, because in that 90s you had a real big crossover from hip hop. I know Anthrax had done it with Public Enemy in the late 80s, but then you had sort of hip hop people getting into the heavy metal thing, and it's kind of crossed, and it's kind of changed how everybody perceived it.
Dynamic a little bit.
Yeah, he was bringing in different elements to it. So, I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. There's a lot of great music was born out of that, and a lot of positives. But also, all I'm saying is it changed things a little bit. And whereas like Chris said, in the old punk hardcore scene in the UK, you'd have never thought of seeing someone from sort of the hip hop scene or rap music going to one of those shows. But then all of a sudden, everybody sort of crossed over. As good as a thing that was, it did kind of change the way.
I think when you got bands like Biohazard and bands like that, who were a mix of like metal and hip hop and punk and whatever. And then it's kind of like they start drawing people in that didn't necessarily know, and then people saw that and would come in blind.
Didn't understand the etiquette.
They're having a bit of a rough up. I'm going to jump in without, there's unwritten rules.
It's sort of the cliched example, but like you talk about the Woodstock '99 riots, it seemed like the apotheosis of where that was going.
I mean, you had the riots at the Woodstock Altamont 69 when the Rolling Stones were playing the Hells Angels went in there and people got stabbed to death and things. So there's always been an element of that violence, and it could sort of boil over at any point. But as Chris said, it never really did in the old punk days and the early metal days, because you knew the the unwritten rules. You wouldn't overstep.
Everybody
that
looked out for each other, is what it used to be.
Do you think that part of the difference is that local scenes and that kind of thing, like when things are smaller, more localised, word of mouth, tape trading, things like that, it keeps it more civil?
It used to be, like before the internet,
more appreciative
to find out about stuff, you had to speak to other people, you had to send letters, you had like tape trading. You know, there was no way of finding out about stuff. The way I used to find out about new bands and new releases, you'd look at the thanks list on the back of an album, and they thank a bunch of bands. You go, who's that? So you go and listen to that, and then you write to them, and they tell you stuff. And it used to be about that, but now it isn't. So now, somebody will hear something, they'll look on the internet, there's a video, this is what's happening.
Look it up on Spotify and suggest other bands that might sound the same.
But there's no connection. There's no connection with the people who are involved with the band themselves or the fans that follow them. So you come in with like your opinion of what you think it is without actually kind of touching base first, sort of thing, really.